Iran. The name itself conjures images of complex geopolitics, ancient history, and a nation constantly at the center of global attention. We see it constantly in the news: wars, threats, secret dealings, nuclear plans dominating headlines and shaping international relations. It's a country that seems shrouded in mystery, its motivations often debated and its future uncertain. But beyond the headlines and political maneuvering lies a deeper story, one that stretches back millennia and is intertwined with the very fabric of human history. But what many don't know, what remains hidden beneath the surface of modern-day events, is that Iran's story is already written in the Bible. Its destiny, its triumphs, and its trials are all foretold within the ancient texts, waiting to be uncovered. These aren't just vague allusions or symbolic interpretations. They are specific references, detailed accounts that paint a vivid picture of Iran's role in the grand narrative of humanity. From its origins tracing back to the earliest civilizations to its final destiny playing out on the world stage, Iran, known in ancient times as Persia, is woven throughout Scripture, from Genesis to the Book of Revelation. It's a thread that connects the beginning of human history to its prophesied end, a constant presence in the unfolding drama of God's plan. The echoes of Persia's past resonate even today, shaping the present and influencing the future. The Bible doesn't just describe how this nation began, recounting its rise to power and its interactions with other ancient empires. It also reveals its future, one that plays a dark and pivotal role in the end times. These are not just stories of the past, but prophecies that are yet to be fulfilled, warnings and promises that hold profound significance for our world today. The stage is being set, the pieces are moving into place, and Iran is destined to play a key role in the events to come. In Revelation, the final book of the Bible, Persia reappears, not as a benevolent force but as part of a terrifying alliance, the War of Gog and Magog, a powerful coalition of nations that will one day rise against Israel, threatening its very existence. This is a prophecy that has been debated and interpreted for centuries, but its core message remains clear. Iran will be a major player in the final conflict, a force to be reckoned with in the battle between good and evil. But long before that dark prophecy cast its shadow, Persia played a surprising and even noble role in God's plan, a chapter of its history filled with light and hope. It's a story of redemption and restoration, a testament to God's ability to use even the most powerful empires to accomplish His purposes. This is a side of Persia that is often overlooked, a reminder that even in the midst of conflict and turmoil, there is always the potential for good. It became the empire God chose to free His people, the Israelites, from their Babylonian captivity, allowing them to return to their homeland and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. This act of liberation was not just a political decision. It was a fulfillment of ancient prophecies, a demonstration of God's faithfulness to His promises. Persia's role in this pivotal moment in history solidified its place in the biblical narrative, a testament to its unexpected contribution to God's plan. The Persian kings issued royal decrees providing resources and protection for the rebuilding effort, ensuring that God's house would once again stand tall in the heart of Jerusalem and fulfill prophetic dreams. Stay with me because what you're about to discover is rarely discussed, often misunderstood, and yet profoundly relevant to our understanding of both the past and the future. We're about to delve into the hidden depths of biblical prophecy, uncovering the secrets that have been concealed for centuries. This is the story of Iran's true role in God's divine plan, a story that spans millennia filled with unexpected twists and turns, from its humble beginning to its prophesied end. It's a story that challenges our assumptions, deepens our understanding of Scripture, and sheds light on the complex relationship between faith and geopolitics. So let's begin at the very beginning, in the book of Genesis, where the seeds of Persia's destiny were first sown, and where we can begin to trace the origins of this fascinating and influential nation. In the aftermath of the Great Flood, a cataclysmic event that reshaped the world, Noah and his family emerged as the progenitors of a new humanity. As the floodwaters receded, Noah's three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, ventured forth, each destined to become the father of distinct nations and cultures that would populate the earth. Their lineages would spread far and wide, laying the groundwork for the diverse tapestry of civilizations that would follow. Genesis 10, often referred to as the Table of Nations, serves as the Bible's first comprehensive family tree, meticulously tracing the descendants of Noah's sons. Within this intricate genealogical record, two key figures emerge: individuals whose names resonate with the early history of Persia: Madai, son of Japheth, and Elam, son of Shem. These men are not merely names on a list, they represent the genesis of distinct peoples who would eventually contribute to the formation of the Persian identity. Madai's descendants, known as the Medes, embarked on a journey eastward, eventually settling in the rugged and formidable northern mountains of modern-day Iran. This region, characterized by its harsh terrain and strategic importance, became their ancestral homeland. The Medes were renowned for their tribal strength, their fierce independence, and their martial prowess, qualities forged in the crucible of their mountainous environment. Their society was structured around tribal affiliations, with each tribe fiercely protective of its territory and autonomy. Simultaneously, to the southwest, Elam's descendants, the Elamites, established themselves in the fertile river valleys near the Persian Gulf. This region, blessed with abundant resources and a strategic location, allowed the Elamites to flourish and develop a prosperous civilization. They were skilled agriculturalists, adept traders, and accomplished artisans, building impressive cities and establishing a sophisticated culture that left a lasting mark on the region. These two distinct peoples, the Medes in the north and the Elamites in the southwest, each with their unique cultures and histories, laid the essential groundwork for what would ultimately coalesce into the mighty Persian Empire. Their interactions, alliances, and sometimes conflicts shaped the political landscape of the region and paved the way for the rise of a unified Persian identity. Their early presence and mention in scripture is more than just a historical footnote. It marks the very beginning of Iran's significant biblical story. This ancient land, with its rich heritage and diverse peoples, was destined to play a pivotal role in God's unfolding divine plan, a plan that would impact the course of nations and the destiny of humanity. From these seemingly humble ancient roots, the remarkable journey of Persia through the annals of history begins to unfold. This journey, marked by periods of both triumph and tribulation, was ultimately shaped by a divine purpose and guided by prophetic visions that illuminated the path ahead. The story of Persia is a testament to the enduring power of faith, resilience, and the enduring hand of God in the affairs of humankind. Elam's first strike, in Genesis 14, the Bible records its first international war. 4 eastern kings led by Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, invaded Canaan, plundering cities and capturing Abraham's nephew Lot. Elam was no minor tribe but a formidable power, striking fear into the region. Abraham, with just 318 trained men, pursued the invaders, launching a daring night attack. Miraculously, he defeated the kings, rescued Lot, and humiliated the Eastern coalition. This victory showcased God's protection over his chosen people, proving no earthly power could prevail against them. Elam's defeat was a sign of things to come, yet its people would rise again, their destiny intertwined with Israel's story. The rise of the Medes and Elamites. This is a story of ancient civilizations nestled in the heart of what we now know as Iran, laying the foundations for one of history's most influential empires. We journey back to a time of tribal societies, burgeoning settlements, and the slow, steady climb towards organized power. As generations pass, the Medes and Elamites grew in strength, their small villages evolving into bustling towns, and those towns into fortified cities. The land itself seemed to nurture their growth, providing resources and strategic advantages that would shape their destiny. They learned to harness the land's bounty, developing agriculture and trade routes that fueled their expansion. In the 8th century BC, a pivotal moment arrived. Deioces, a visionary king of the Medes, recognized the potential of a unified people. He skillfully brought together the often fractious northern tribes, forging a cohesive political entity from disparate groups. This was no small feat, requiring diplomacy, strength, and a clear vision for the future, establishing Ecbatana as the first imperial capital of ancient Iran. This city, a testament to Median ingenuity and ambition, became the center of their growing power, a symbol of their newfound unity, and a beacon for the future empire. Its walls rose high, protecting its citizens and showcasing the Medes' growing influence. But the Medes weren't content with just a capital. His grandson, Cyaxares, a brilliant military strategist, understood that true power lay in a well-organized and formidable army. He transformed the Median army from a tribal force into a professional fighting machine, a force capable of toppling empires and reshaping the political landscape of the ancient world. Meanwhile, to the southwest, the Elamites were also making their mark. They developed their own distinct culture, a rich tapestry of art, literature, and religious beliefs. Their cities thrived as centers of trade and learning, attracting merchants and scholars from far and wide. These two peoples, the Medes and the Elamites, descendants of Madai and Elam, were on a collision course with destiny. Their paths, though distinct, were destined to converge, merging their strengths and cultures into a greater entity that would leave an indelible mark on history. But this rise was not merely a matter of human ambition and strategic prowess. God's prophets, Isaiah and Jeremiah, had foretold their role in his divine plan, a plan that extended far beyond the borders of Media and Elam. They were to be instruments of his will, judging Babylon and ultimately liberating Israel. The stage was set, the players were in place, and the time was ripe for the rise of the Persian Empire, a nation that God would use for both judgment and redemption, a nation that would shape the course of history and leave a lasting legacy for millennia to come. God's prophetic promise, through Isaiah and Jeremiah, God revealed astonishing prophecies about Persia. Isaiah, writing 150 years before Cyrus's birth, named him as God's anointed king who would free Israel and rebuild the temple. Jeremiah declared that Elam and Media would bring judgment upon Babylon, the empire that destroyed Jerusalem. These prophecies were not mere predictions but divine decrees, showing God's sovereignty over nations. The Medes and Elamites, though pagan, were chosen instruments in God's hands. Their unification under a single empire would fulfill these promises, demonstrating that God can use even the unlikeliest of nations to advance his divine timeline. Imagine being torn from your home, uprooted from everything familiar. Imagine your city in ruins, the place of your birth reduced to rubble and ash, a testament to defeat. And then, imagine being carried off to Babylon, a long, arduous journey into the unknown, a world of strange gods and customs, a culture entirely foreign to your own, a place where everything you know is challenged. Daniel, a young Hebrew full of promise and potential, was meant to be assimilated, absorbed into the Babylonian way of life. But he clung to his faith, to the traditions of his ancestors, to the God of Israel. He refused to let go of what defined him. He and his friends refused the king's rich food, the delicacies offered to them as a sign of favor and assimilation. Instead, they chose a simple diet of vegetables and water, a deliberate act of obedience that honored their God and set them apart. Their quiet defiance, their unwavering commitment to their beliefs made them healthier, stronger, and more vibrant than their peers. And wiser, possessing a depth of understanding and insight that surpassed all others in the king's service, even those trained in the Babylonian arts. Daniel was gifted with the ability to interpret dreams, a rare and mysterious talent, a window into the divine realm, a divine insight that set him apart, marking him as someone special, someone touched by God. In Nebuchadnezzar's court, a place of intrigue and power, where fortunes were made and lost in an instant, Daniel's integrity and wisdom shone like a beacon, cutting through the darkness of deceit and ambition. He rose in influence not through flattery or manipulation, the common tools of courtiers, but through character and faith, through unwavering honesty and a deep-seated commitment to what was right. Daniel's strength came from a higher purpose, from a connection to something beyond the earthly realm. Not from power or position, not from the fleeting advantages of worldly success, but from an unshakable inner conviction. This exile, this seemingly tragic turn of events, was being prepared for a destiny, a grand design far beyond his comprehension. A destiny he could not yet see, a path shrouded in mystery, but guided by a divine hand. Through Daniel's faithfulness, his unwavering devotion to God in the face of adversity, the story of his people, and indeed the story of the world, would be illuminated, revealing truths that would resonate through the ages. Even in the heart of the world's greatest empire, a place of immense power and influence, a civilization that seemed invincible, Daniel became a light, a beacon of hope and truth in a world steeped in darkness and idolatry, revealing that a divine plan was always at work, orchestrating events, guiding destinies, and ultimately, shaping the course of history. In the opulent city of Babylon, where power and grandeur reigned supreme, King Nebuchadnezzar, the ruler of a vast empire, found himself restless one night. He awoke suddenly, shaken to his core by a dream, a vivid and unsettling vision that he couldn't quite grasp, a dream he couldn't remember upon waking. The details eluded him, yet the feeling of dread lingered. Consumed by anxiety and desperate for answers, he summoned his wise men, the kingdom's most esteemed scholars, astrologers, and magicians. He demanded they not only interpret the dream but also recount the dream itself, a feat seemingly impossible. The stakes were impossibly high. He decreed that if they failed to meet his demands, a gruesome fate awaited them: execution. The wise men, renowned for their knowledge and mystical abilities, were terrified. They confessed with trembling voices that no mortal possessed the power to discern a dream without knowing its content. Such a demand was beyond human capability. Enraged by their admission of helplessness, the king, in his fury, issued a sweeping decree. All the wise men in Babylon were to be put to death, their lives forfeit for their inability to satisfy his whim. This decree extended to Daniel and his companions, Hebrew captives who had been brought to Babylon and were known for their wisdom and understanding. They too were counted among the wise men and faced imminent death. Daniel, a man of unwavering faith and remarkable composure, approached the captain of the guard with a calm demeanor and wise words. He asked for time to seek divine intervention. He then gathered his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, and implored them to join him in fervent prayer, seeking God's mercy and revelation concerning the king's dream. They knew that the Babylonian methods of divination, magic, astrology, and other occult practices were futile in the face of such a divine mystery. Instead, they turned to the one true God, the God of heaven, the source of all wisdom and understanding, pleading for his intervention. That very night, as they prayed with sincere hearts, the answer came to Daniel in a vision, revealing the king's dream and its profound interpretation. With newfound confidence and divine insight, Daniel was brought before the king, ready to face the challenge that had stumped all the wise men of Babylon. He stood tall, ready to reveal the dream and its meaning, a feat that seemed impossible to everyone else in the kingdom. This was more than just a royal crisis. It was a pivotal moment in history. It was an opportunity for God's power to be displayed, for his sovereignty to be recognized in the heart of the most powerful empire on earth. Daniel's unwavering faith transformed a situation of impending doom into a remarkable opportunity to glorify God. The fate of the Babylonian wise men, and even more significantly, the reputation and honor of Daniel's God, hung precariously in the balance. Everything rested on this moment, a critical juncture where the power of earthly kingdoms would be measured against the might of the divine. In the stillness of the ancient night, as the world slumbered, a profound and divine secret, hidden from the eyes of the worldly, was unveiled to a faithful servant. Daniel's courage, born of unwavering faith, was poised to alter not only his own destiny, but also the course of empires, leaving an indelible mark on the pages of history. The stage was meticulously set within the grand halls of Babylon for a revelation of divine proportions, a moment so significant that its echoes would resonate through the corridors of time, shaping the destinies of nations and generations to come. The mighty Babylon, a symbol of human achievement and earthly power, was on the verge of witnessing a demonstration of the true and living God's unparalleled power and wisdom. Daniel stood before Nebuchadnezzar and made it clear, only God could reveal the king's secret. He described the dream, a dazzling statue with a head of gold. The head, Daniel said, was Nebuchadnezzar and his glorious Babylonian empire. Babylon was unmatched in wealth and power, a golden age forged by conquest. But the dream's message was sobering. The gold was only the beginning. After Babylon, another lesser kingdom would arise. The glory of Babylon was real but not permanent. The dream shattered the illusion of eternal power. Babylon was just the first in a sequence of empires. Daniel's prophecy placed Nebuchadnezzar's reign in a larger divine plan. The head of gold would give way to other kingdoms. All earthly power, no matter how mighty, is temporary. The king had seen his place in history and its limits. Daniel continued, describing the statue's chest and arms of silver. This symbolized a second kingdom, the Medo-Persian Empire, that would follow Babylon. Silver was valuable, but less so than gold, hinting at a decline in glory. The two arms represented the Medes and Persians, united in conquest. At the time, this seemed unlikely, but Daniel's prophecy looked far ahead. The rise and fall of empires was not random, but part of a divine sequence. Each kingdom would have its moment, then fade. For Daniel's people, this meant hope. Babylon's rule would not last forever. The Silver Kingdom's rise was the first step toward their freedom. Power on earth is always temporary. God's plan was unfolding, one empire at a time. Years later, Daniel received visions that added detail to the prophecies. He saw a ram with two horns, one taller than the other, charging in all directions. The angel Gabriel explained the ram was Media and Persia, with Persia eventually dominating. Then came a goat from the west, swift and fierce with a single prominent horn. The goat shattered the ram, foretelling Greece's conquest of Persia under Alexander the Great. Daniel's visions revealed not just the rise and fall of empires, but their names and natures. God's control extended to the smallest details of history. The progression from gold to silver was now filled in with specifics. Daniel's people could trust that God's plan was precise and unstoppable. Their hope rested on a foundation of prophecy and divine foresight. Even more astonishing was Isaiah's prophecy, given 150 years before Daniel. Isaiah named the future king, Cyrus, who would rise to power in Persia. God called Cyrus my shepherd, chosen to fulfill his purpose. Though a pagan, Cyrus was God's instrument to subdue nations and open doors. Isaiah foretold that Cyrus would command the rebuilding of Jerusalem and its temple. This promise was written long before Jerusalem's destruction or exile. It was a beacon of hope. Their punishment would not be the end. A deliverer named Cyrus would bring restoration. The prophecy waited in the scrolls, a testament to God's foreknowledge. History was about to catch up to prophecy. As foretold in ancient prophecies, a new power was stirring in the East, a force that would reshape the world as it was known. Whispers of its coming had echoed through the ages, and now the dawn was breaking on its rise. Cyrus of Persia, a name that would soon resonate through history, a leader destined for greatness. He united the disparate Persian tribes, forging them into a single, formidable force, driven by a shared vision. Then, with strategic brilliance and unwavering resolve, conquered the Medes, a powerful kingdom in its own right. But instead of subjugation, he offered partnership, forging a powerful alliance that would become the bedrock of his growing empire. Instead of crushing the Medes under his heel, as was the custom of conquerors, he made them partners in his grand design, recognizing their strength and integrating them into his vision. This unprecedented act of unity fulfilled the ancient vision of 2 horns and 2 arms, symbolizing the combined strength of Persia and Media. With this united force, a military machine unlike any the world had seen, Cyrus launched a series of rapid conquests, sweeping across the ancient world with unparalleled speed and efficiency. He decisively defeated Lydia, a kingdom renowned for its wealth and power, expanded east, pushing the boundaries of his empire further than any before him, and in his wake he became known as a liberator, not just a conqueror, offering freedom and prosperity to those under his rule. Cyrus, in a move that defied the norms of his time, respected local customs and religions, fostering an environment of tolerance and understanding. This enlightened approach won him loyalty across his vast and diverse empire, solidifying his rule and ensuring its stability. His rise was more than just a chapter in history books, more than just a series of military victories and political alliances. It was prophecy fulfilled, a testament to the divine hand guiding events on earth. The Silver Kingdom, as envisioned by prophets of old, was now a tangible reality, a force to be reckoned with. And its gaze was fixed, its armies marching inexorably toward Babylon, the jewel of the ancient world. For those who knew the prophecies of Daniel and Isaiah, who had studied their words with fervent hope, Cyrus's ascent was not merely a political event, but the unmistakable sound of God's grand plan unfolding in real time. The world's largest empire was rapidly forming, stretching across continents and cultures, and its path, divinely ordained, led straight to the Jewish exiles languishing in Babylon, their hopes dwindling with each passing year. The stage was meticulously set for a dramatic fulfillment of ancient promises, a moment of redemption that would alter the course of history. Hope, long dormant, was finally on the horizon, a beacon of light for God's chosen people, signaling the dawn of a new era. Babylon, thought impregnable, faced Cyrus's army in 539 BC. Inside, King Belshazzar feasted arrogantly, using sacred vessels from Jerusalem. Suddenly, a mysterious hand wrote a message on the wall. Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin, Daniel interpreted. Babylon's days were numbered, the kingdom would fall to the Medes and Persians. Outside, Cyrus's engineers diverted the Euphrates, allowing soldiers to enter under the city walls. Babylon fell without a major battle. Belshazzar was killed that night. The head of gold had fallen to the Silver Kingdom. Prophecy and history converged in a single night. Isaiah's and Daniel's words were fulfilled to the letter. The fall of Babylon was divine judgment, not just military victory. For the Jewish exiles, it was the sound of freedom beginning. God's plan had triumphed over the mightiest empire. Cyrus's conquest was just the beginning. He issued a decree. The Jewish exiles could return home and rebuild their temple. He even returned the treasures taken from Jerusalem. This act was unprecedented. Conquerors didn't free captives. Cyrus, God's chosen instrument, set restoration in motion. The Silver Kingdom became the agent of redemption. Daniel and Isaiah's prophecies echoed through history. In the heart of the Persian Empire, a realm of unimaginable wealth and power, where the sun beat down upon sprawling cities and fertile lands, a darkness began to gather. A sinister plot conceived in the shadows, threatening to engulf the entire kingdom. This was not a sudden eruption of violence, but a slow, creeping malignancy, born not of war nor territorial disputes, but of one man's deeply wounded pride, a personal vendetta that would soon escalate into a horrifying decree: Haman, a name that would become synonymous with hatred and destruction. Haman, an Agagite, a descendant of a people long opposed to Israel and the king's highest official, wielding immense influence and authority within the empire. He demanded reverence from all, expecting every subject to bow before his power and prestige, a constant display of his inflated ego. But Mordecai, a Jew, a man of unwavering faith and principle, refused to bow, standing tall amidst a sea of subservience. Honoring only God, adhering to his beliefs even in the face of potential danger, and defying the customs of the court. Haman's rage, initially a flicker of annoyance, grew into a consuming fire, a burning desire for revenge that morphed into a sinister plot. This wasn't just about punishing one man, it was a calculated scheme against all Jews across the vast expanse of the empire, from the farthest reaches of the kingdom to the very heart of Persia. He convinced King Ahasuerus, a ruler easily swayed by flattery and promises of wealth, that the Jews were a threat to the stability of the realm, a people whose customs and beliefs set them apart, offering a fortune, an enormous sum of silver, to fill the royal treasury and sweeten the deal. This was all to sanction their destruction, to legally authorize the annihilation of an entire people based on nothing more than prejudice and greed. The king, indifferent to the plight of the Jews and blinded by the allure of wealth, handed Haman his signet ring, the ultimate symbol of royal authority, granting him the power to enact his wicked plan. "The people are yours," he declared, sealing the fate of thousands with a careless wave of his hand. Decrees were sent across 127 provinces, carried by swift messengers on horseback, spreading the horrifying news to every corner of the empire. On a set day, chosen by casting lots, all Jews, young and old, men, women, and children, were to be annihilated, their lives extinguished in a single brutal act of genocide, their possessions plundered, their homes ransacked, their entire existence erased from the face of the earth. A shadow fell over Susa, the capital city, as the weight of the impending doom settled upon its inhabitants, threatening to extinguish a people, to wipe out their history, their culture, and their very identity. The machinery of genocide was set in motion, grinding relentlessly forward, fueled by hatred and indifference, and hope seemed lost, swallowed by the darkness of Haman's malevolence and the king's apathy. But in the palace, amidst the opulence and intrigue, a hidden connection remained, a secret link to the very people Haman sought to destroy, one that would soon change everything, a glimmer of hope in the face of unimaginable despair. The fate of an entire nation, their survival hanging in the balance, now hung by a thread, a fragile strand of hope against the overwhelming force of evil. The stage was set, the players in place, for an extraordinary act of courage, a moment of defiance that would determine the destiny of a people. News of the decree, a cruel and heartless edict, brought mourning and despair to the Jews throughout the vast Persian Empire. The weight of Haman's hatred settled upon them like a suffocating blanket, threatening to extinguish their very existence. The vibrant tapestry of their community, once filled with laughter and hope, was now overshadowed by fear and uncertainty. Mordecai, a man of unwavering faith and deep conviction, tore his clothes and covered himself in sackcloth and ashes, a visible symbol of his grief and a desperate plea to heaven. He knew that only a miracle could save his people, and he turned to his cousin Esther, the queen, a woman of grace and hidden strength. Esther lived a life of privilege within the palace walls, but she carried a secret, a burden of identity. She was secretly a Jew, a fact that could cost her everything if revealed. Mordecai, desperate and knowing the danger, urged his cousin Esther to plead with the king, to use her position to intercede on behalf of her people. Esther hesitated, torn between her loyalty to her people and the very real threat to her own life. She knew that approaching the king uninvited meant certain death, a law designed to protect the king from unwanted intrusions and potential threats. Only if the king chose to extend his golden scepter, a symbol of his favor and mercy, would her life be spared. Mordecai's message, delivered with urgency and a profound sense of responsibility, was clear. "If you remain silent at this time," he warned, "deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from another place. Some other source will intervene. But you and your father's family will perish, lost to history and forgotten." He posed a question that resonated through the ages. "Who knows but that you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" A moment of profound destiny, a crossroads of fate. Esther's fear, though still present, began to give way to a growing sense of resolve, a quiet determination to do what was right. She understood the gravity of the situation and, with newfound courage, called for a 3-day fast, a period of intense prayer and supplication. This fast was to be observed by all the Jews of Susa, a united front against the impending doom. After 3 days of fasting and prayer, Esther made her decision. "I will go to the king, even though it is against the law." And with unwavering conviction she declared, "If I perish, I perish." Esther embraced her destiny, accepting the potential consequences with grace and courage. She was willing to risk everything, her comfort, her security, even her life, for the sake of her people. The fate of the Jews, their very survival, now rested solely on her courage, her willingness to stand against injustice. The palace, once her sanctuary, a place of beauty and privilege, now felt like a battleground. It became the front line of a spiritual battle, a place where good and evil would clash in a dramatic confrontation. Esther's decision, born of courage and faith, would echo through history, inspiring generations to stand up for what is right. The moment of truth, the culmination of fear, faith, and determination, had finally arrived. The queen, a solitary figure armed with courage and conviction, would stand alone before the throne, ready to face her destiny. Esther, a woman of quiet strength, now robed in courage, made her way into the imposing king's court. Every step was a testament to her resolve, knowing the immense risk she was undertaking. The king, powerful and unpredictable, welcomed her, extending his scepter and sparing her life. This was the first hurdle cleared, but the true challenge lay ahead. With careful calculation, she invited the king and the deceitful Haman to 2 banquets, creating an atmosphere of anticipation and intrigue. She strategically delayed her request, understanding the power of timing, heightening suspense, and allowing her plan to mature. The fate of her people hung in the balance with each passing moment. That night, sleep eluded the king. Restless, he recalled how Mordecai, a loyal servant, had once saved his life from a treacherous plot, an act of selfless bravery. Yet, to his dismay, he realized that Mordecai had never been honored for his courageous deed. This realization stirred within him a sense of injustice. Meanwhile, Haman, blinded by his arrogance and consumed by his hatred for Mordecai, was meticulously planning Mordecai's execution, confident in his influence over the king. In a stunning twist of fate, Haman was instead ordered to honor him publicly, leading Mordecai through the city streets in a grand display of royal favor. The tables began to turn, the tide shifting against the wicked Haman. At the second banquet, the tension in the room was palpable. With unwavering resolve, Esther revealed her Jewish identity, risking everything, and exposed Haman's genocidal plot to annihilate her people. "We have been sold to be destroyed, annihilated, and completely wiped out," she declared, her voice filled with a mixture of fear and determination. With a trembling finger, she pointed towards Haman. "This wicked Haman is the enemy, the oppressor, the one who seeks our destruction." The king, enraged by Haman's treachery and the revelation of his sinister plan, ordered Haman's immediate execution on the very gallows he had so maliciously built for Mordecai, a fitting end for such a vile man. The architect of genocide, the man who sought to eradicate an entire people, fell by his own hand, a victim of his own wicked schemes. The Jews' fate shifted dramatically from the brink of utter doom to a miraculous deliverance, a testament to courage and faith. Esther's wisdom, her unwavering courage, and her impeccable timing had ultimately saved her people from annihilation, securing their future. The reversal was complete, a stunning victory against all odds. The powerless became protectors, rising to positions of strength and influence, ensuring the safety and well-being of their community. And the plotter, the one who sought to inflict so much pain and suffering, was utterly undone, his evil schemes backfiring spectacularly. A new hope dawned in Persia, a promise of peace, prosperity, and a future free from the threat of persecution. Haman was gone, but the deadly decree remained. Persian law could not be revoked, but Esther and Mordecai acted swiftly. The king empowered them to write a new edict. The Jews could defend themselves. Couriers raced across the empire, spreading the news. On the appointed day, the Jews stood united, defeating their enemies. The empire that once threatened them now became their shield. Mordecai rose to power, and the Jews were honored throughout Persia. The day of destruction became a day of victory. Persia, once an oppressor, became a place of refuge. A new bond was forged between Persia and the Jewish people. The story of survival became a legacy of hope. The empire's transformation was complete. Centuries later, Persia's legacy endured not just in politics but in wisdom. Daniel, during the Babylonian exile, became chief among the Magi, Persia's priestly scholars. He shared prophecies of a coming Messiah, which the Magi preserved for generations. These wise men studied the stars, awaiting a sign foretold in Hebrew scripture. When a brilliant star appeared, they recognized it as the signal the King of the Jews had been born. Their journey from Persia was a fulfillment of ancient prophecy and faith. The Magi's quest was not random, but rooted in Daniel's teachings. They brought knowledge, reverence, and expectation to Jerusalem. Their arrival was the return of a legacy, Persia's connection to God's promise. The Magi's wisdom bridged centuries, leading them to the Messiah. Persia's spiritual heritage was about to shine in Bethlehem. The Magi's journey was long, guided by a star and ancient prophecy. In Jerusalem, they asked, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews?" Herod, threatened, sent them to Bethlehem, hoping to use them for his own ends. The star led them to the child, and in a humble home they bowed and worshipped. They offered gold, frankincense, and myrrh, gifts rich in meaning. Gentile scholars from Persia were the first to honor Jesus as king. Warned in a dream, they returned home by another route, avoiding Herod. Their visit marked a turning point. Persia, once an enemy, now honored the Messiah. The story came full circle, from threat to worship. The Magi's homage was a sign that salvation was for all nations. Persia's role in redemption was sealed in Bethlehem. Persia's story in the Bible doesn't end with the Magi. The prophet Ezekiel foresaw a future when Persia would join a hostile alliance against Israel. Led by Gog of Magog, this coalition would invade a restored Israel in the last days. Persia, once a protector, would become an adversary. History's tides shift, and nations change their roles. Yet, even in this dark prophecy, God's sovereignty remains. The invasion is orchestrated by God for his own purpose, to reveal his power and defend his people. Persia's future hostility serves a greater plan. The final word is not destruction, but divine intervention. The story warns that past blessings don't guarantee future faithfulness. God's purposes will prevail even through shifting alliances. Jeremiah, a contemporary of Ezekiel, offered a different vision for Persia, specifically Elam. God declared judgment on Elam, but also promised, "I will set my throne in Elam." Unlike other nations, Persia was promised a future of divine presence, not just destruction. This prophecy hints at redemption and spiritual awakening in Iran. God's throne in Elam points to a time when his rule will be established in Persian hearts. The tension between Ezekiel and Jeremiah's visions reveals God's complex plan. Judgment on regimes does not erase hope for the people. Persia's destiny includes both warning and promise. God's love and purpose for the land endure beyond political turmoil. The story of Persia is not finished. Persia's biblical journey is a tapestry of extremes: threat, deliverance, wisdom, and prophecy. From Esther's courage to the Magi's worship, Persia's story is one of transformation. The nation that once sought to destroy the Jews became their shield, then the first to honor the Messiah. Prophets saw Persia both as a future enemy and as a land of God's throne. Today, Iran stands at the center of global tension, echoing ancient prophecies. Yet God's plan is deeper than politics. The same God who turned Persia's heart before can do so again. Persia's destiny is still unfolding, a reminder of God's sovereignty over all nations. The story is not over, the tapestry is still being woven. In the end, God's redemptive purposes will prevail.